Hello. Sorry I took like way too long to get to this. Like today's been a crazy day. Anyway, let's get into it.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
There we go. Okay. Real quick, I wanna check my mic. Okay, that's good.
Five, four, three, two, one. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Let's test these hypotheses.
Eyes on the back.
Take a rock. Here with your shield, there's you have your grasp. Is like this is like a small thing, but just a little bit of like your instant. So far, your shield instant and like your stability has been like really good. But, like here, I don't. I guess you are pretty low on. I don't know. I guess this is just a I think
Activating the barrier.
yeah, that's thing. And I feel like it's going to say not. I guess going into this next fight, I feel like your playstyle with your rocks has been like to try and kind of use them, I guess, like a bit spontaneously, which you were getting value. You're like getting people really low, but I guess when you kind of approach a fight and then you lose it, a lot of the times you may want to consider like a playstyle change. So you might want to just consider like throwing it more into your like Orisa's like halt. Like even if you were getting value doing like one play style, it's just like sometimes just having something change can just so with the like I don't know if, so I don't have the comp, so I don't know if you're like Orisa is calming this or not, but you with the hog, as soon as you see the line you want to hook. So if you were playing hog and you saw the line, you want to pretty much throw your hook at that same time. But this is Sigma, so you kind of want to basically guess where the halt is going to be and then essentially like pre-fire it. So you want to I guess but it's that's basically more like long range thing. I guess that's kind of like a close range. But here this Ashe is let me just rewind it. You do have to be careful for this Ashe, because let me just show you what they've been able to do. This offhand so here they're just able to like take duels with whoever they want to at this point. So you like have to like make a note of like basically when you are against snipers, you really have to make a note of like where the snipers are. The first thing, or I guess like a smaller thing, is like Zarya's bubbles, like either personal or projected, are really like crucial cooldowns for negating the flux. But even more so than that, typically you want to combo halt with it. So I guess earlier your Orisa used it push back. This one, unfortunately, this shouldn't really do anything about like this halt. Ideally, you would be able to combo with the halt. it's like a bit of like an awareness thing. Actually, no, you guys are fine. Come to think of it, but I guess you're the only front line here. Never mind, nothing actually. So pushing up like at the end of fights is fine, but you do have to consider like where your healers are. So basically just do make a note of it, because like your Ana is right here. Basically, if you get to like where you're at, you're kind of just like, if you go past here, your Ana is like no chance gonna have LOS on you. So you like playing like here is fine, or I don't know if you can do this as like Sigma, but I know as like this like on top of this thing is like typically a pretty powerful position, and your Ana might have LOS on you, maybe not with this stone out of the way. But that's another option for positioning, or you could just play here, or low ground even would be like an option. But basically just make a note of like where your healers are when you push up, like some space after winning the fight.
Special attack.
Don't waste my time. Please move behind.
Almost ready. Observe the barrier.
On the stairs is really strong because you're able to like take an off angle from your arista. Okay, here you're able to like, basically you're drawing a ton of their attention, and they're like not really able to get that much value from it. So this is really good. You might be able to grouped up. Let me rewind it actually. They grab around.
Almost ready.
Okay.
Observe the barrier. Barrier unstable.
I feel like try to, I guess, maybe communicate with your Orisa a little bit more, and just like because like here would have been like a really good chance to like use your ult combos of like the pull and the like your rocks with your Orisa and your like fluxes like a little bit but grabs are I'll go over like eating grabs at the end of this. Like it's a lot easier to do as a diva. Like this grab you probably wouldn't have been able to eat a Sigma because it's probably would have been too far away.
Team kill.
That music. It's playing. Back to me.
The payload has reached
Oh, this is huge. Nice. try to like, with your shield, try to like prevent it from like, don't ever let it be at 1 health, because if it's at 1 health, like, having like 50 more shield out isn't really gonna like, use that much. And like, right here, you might as well just like, let your Orisa use Fortify and then just back up. So like when you're playing this double shield comp, essentially your backup shields are Orisa's Fortify and your Eat, like your Kinetic Grasp like thing. So you don't have to like unnecessarily all the backup build up, and here it just kind of goes down and then your Ashe gets killed. This is like the small thing. So something that you might don't want to get. Although it's very easy. So I'll just yeah, but basically, like, it's, I'm gonna rewind this. So either way, it's like, even if somebody rushes it right, it's still good to have, like, your rocks in sync with, like, the pull, because here, this is, like, a pretty good pull. I thought I get the Moira. I kept thinking there's a fade, but either way, just, like, had the Moira not had a fade there, it's just, like, you wouldn't have been able to get, like, more value with, like, being able to combo. So now that you're here, let me go into this. Okay, so basically you wanna, I think, like when you're right here, you kind of just don't have like a, you're kind of like, this Reinhardt gets like the opportunity to like pin you, like out here. So basically you want to always be safe. So you having kind of like your back turns or the enemy isn't the best. Where if you were basically if you were here, you could have like a little bit like more cover, and you wouldn't like separate yourself from like your team quite as much, where like it'd be a lot easier to just like return to your break from there than from there, because at this point you're more liable to be jumped by either Tracer or like Moira, or provided that Ashe was alive, the Ashe. But
I'm on fire! The prophetic flux is upon us! Out of existence!
there would have been another like good opportunity to use your flux, because like, this is like
Unstable!
you pretty much could have gotten like a 6-man flux
Out
here.
of existence!
You see the halt, and then right here you could have two, and then
Activating the barrier! Pardon.
watch this real quick. So I'll probably cover this like a bit more in when I'm talking about grabs, but you have to consider like the readability when like blocking shatters. So this Reinhardt had two readable things that you could tell he was gonna slam here, which is one, he's engaging. So like when people are engaging, they're gonna use their ults. So on his engagement, he comes in. So another thing you need to note is the cooldowns that that your team like does not have. So which is the Orisa's shield. So since this Orisa doesn't have shield, this Reinhardt is going to be looking for a slam. So that's your kind of cue. Was one, the shield, the Orisa didn't have shield, and two, they were entering a fight. The other thing. But honestly, like just blocking shatters is really hard. Oh, that's enough.
60 seconds remaining.
The equations were correct.
Team kill.
The problem must lie elsewhere. Barrier in place.
Also, something I guess just to keep in mind, I feel like now with this VOD you let like a lot of like fire strikes. So you could use your ability on some of the fire strikes. Because basically the main like reason to do that is like since it's like you're outside of a fight, the odds of that killing somebody are quite low, but it lets the Reinhardt get like a ton of ult a lot of the time. Like not always, but sometimes you'll get like 25 or 30% of their ult off of one fire strike. Yeah.
Coming at you.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, sorry.
Defend objective A. I have the back. Lights out.
Oh, that's all. Well, you get the hug. So, okay, wait, sorry. I thought so like when bubbling people, try to like wait until they like start taking damage to bubble them, because one, that's gonna increase the amount of essentially bubble uptime that you have, where they're gonna be getting more of your bubble, like so you don't like have any like 1 second where you bubbled them and they weren't gonna take damage anyway, and two, it like if they weren't gonna take damage anyway, you're not gonna get energy after that. So you get some energy, but you could have gotten like more if you had like waited until the Ashe had like double it. Also, you have to make sure like they're actually high energy like this, you don't need your energy, like you don't need your bubbles for personal bubbles specifically, you don't need them for energy. Because you're already at 100. So what you want to be doing is just like play like this bubble enables you to play aggro. So while you have the bubble up, now that you've used your bubble, you kind of force yourself to run away. And you basically just, one, you're no personal, and two, you decrease the amount of adjustment. Also, this Reinhardt isn't being pressured that much. You kind of like want to like wait until you start like doing something, because the engagement hasn't happened yet. So in some scenarios, like you like we want to like engage, like you want to bubble your Reinhardt like before the engagement and like during the poke stage, so you can get energy. But here it's just like you're like just about to go into a fight, so you might as well just like wait a little bit until your Reinhardt actually. so that was kind of like, let me run this. Yeah, this is just kind of like another like wasted bubble. Like what this bubble like enables you to do, like the amount of aggressiveness you can get away with is insane as Zarya, honestly. Like you can just go on like insane solo flanks and stuff. Like you could literally just like walk around here and like stuff like that. Well, this would probably be a little bit far away, but since your team is gonna come up and claim this space anyway, you could like come around here, and then you could like beam people, and then you could just melt somebody because you do like 190 damage per second, and then they'll notice you, and then you have 2 seconds to get away, and your Reinhardt's probably gonna be like playing this corner or like this corner or something like that. But like you can honestly just like flank a ton, like even if you have your personal. But like if you keep like wasting your personal, you just like you don't like lose your escape. That is Zarya is just like you are playing like aggressive. Like that's the amount of aggressive like you can go. Like you can go like super far up. But the problem is you don't have your like personal. Zarya comes really. It's like floating. What? Huh. Interesting. I guess that's relevant though. Either way, good graph. Yeah, like everybody was reloading. So like it comes out to like that's good that you're kind of hitting this in the head a lot, but you need to be like actually like taking damage in the first place. And that you were just like you had enough health that you could just pretty much just like bluff and like anticipate the fact that they're not gonna kill you, and then wait until you get like 98 health. But here you just like lost a ton of energy just because like you like misused your bubble.
Perseverance is the key.
Also, yeah, be throwing like right click at your feet like that. Like you're just like spraying them with like right click your feet. Look at this. That was a good instinct to like try those things. Backing up anyway, yeah, you can just kind of like do the doubles like more liberally, trying to get more ends up transing, which this is fine, but just so you're like aware, another option like basically you can use your graviton surge as a transcendence. So if they grab, you need something to like negate the grab, which in this case transcendence is a perfectly fine option, but just you can use your grab as another option to like negate it. You already like I think you already won this like a little bit. What was it like? think you will. You should already.
Век живи, век учись.
Hopefully you win this because you were up 2. The Tedic is popping off those.
The payload has reached the chip.
By the dragon.
Like your combo there, like really good. Like being able to like do that 1/8 of a second walking forward. That is really good. I feel like you are there's not so you're I just want to go through your why I think it could be improved. Is basically you're kind of on this Zarya with like the Reinhardt, but then you just kind of switch to the Lucio, and when you like switch to somebody, you don't want to just like yeet your like hook. You want to like I guess like look at them and then like take your time to land up your shot. Basically, you just don't give yourself like any time to like. But if you want to switch, you have to like mentally so your hook.
I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty.
Precision Wakandan Engineer. And Blizzard doesn't have an option to mute that. At least it's not that thing. I could have really good some fraud one of the things I've been going over in scrims a lot was basically like using ults to counter other ults, where a lot of like times like people kind of just get into like, oh well, Transcendence and Beat are the ults that counter other ults, but you have a lot of ults that can counter. So Reinhardt getting nano boosted. First of all, Reinhardt in general is really weak to whole hog because one, he has a really large hitbox, and two, if you were to like whole hog like a Wrecking Ball or like a Reinhardt / Orisa character, they would just get booped away. But since he has Steadfast, he can't get booped, which means he's going to be at close range for longer than a typical person. So typically, like solo whole hogging Reinhardt's like, nowadays now that he gets nanoed, like you whole hogging him probably would have been the play there, because what? That's crazy. What? No way. Okay, are you? I'm legitimately wondering if you're aimbotting. Like, there's no way. Okay. What is that?
Double kill.
Okay, anyway.
Ready.
Forward, my friends!
Escort the payload. Overtime.
I've got the payload and I'm moving out. Get over here.
Let me run this.
That tickles.
So
Score 4-3. Switching. Ready for battle. Ready for battle.
Go there. Coming in.
5, 4,
Coming in to say it.
1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Coming in.
so this is ranked, so like obviously, and it's like a replay code, so the communication is like, I don't really have access to it, but ideally you would like try to like push these guys out. Like you could walk up, and like even if you like are only able to like go so far with it, or like if even only like you get to like right here, like the fact that you're running an Ashe and a Junkrat, like you're gonna be able to like just stand here or like here, and as they walk in, they're gonna get like free shots, and then you can just back up, and then like I said, I have a Lucio, so you do have to be a little bit careful with it because they're gonna get to you faster than you're gonna be able to like kite them. But like you just being able to like go up here and like hold a shield and then just let them spam is like really powerful. Like a lot of people really underestimate the power of that. But you do have to be careful because within your comp you don't have a Lucio and they do have a Lucio. And there's been like a lot of metas, like pretty much, and most metas there's typically a character where if you don't run that character, the enemy can just run into you. And Lucio is almost always that character because basically if they just run into you and they're just like swinging, and if you for whatever reason, like basically you don't have the option to kite, like you don't have the option to like play slow because they're just going to be able to chase you down with the Lucio. But that's just something to keep in mind. Also, something I should probably mention about that. That's more in scrims and like really high elo games where like a lot of people wouldn't do that like either outside of scrims or like, I mean I don't even really think that was happening in like diamond scrims during like the Ghost Venom or something like the diamond team. I think like that's like a weird thing, but it's just something to be aware of. Man, what's going on? Oh, something I forgot to mention. Once again, I don't have access to the comms, but if you get a high energy, just let your healers know that, and they're going to be able to pocket you more. Because if you die with 77 energy, like getting that energy back is going to be kind of hard. So, or they should use you as a higher priority to heal, but Okay, so I said I was gonna mention some stuff on the Graviton Surge. Whatever, I'll just do it here. Maybe I'll go to MS Paint actually. Yeah, I'm gonna go to MS Paint. And I'm gonna use this. So basically the criteria for grabbing criteria. Pretend this is good handwriting. So like one is basically engaging on you. So basically if they're going in, they're likely going to grab, which is one of the readability things. Like so like if they walk in. Or if you walk in, so like if you're on like Busan or something, or like King's Row, or like a map like that, that's like a really like choke heavy oriented map. Like if you like walking through it, you're like walk through a choke. So if you're like walking through a choke, they're likely gonna grab. So that's like two things to note. Other criteria for grab is they're gonna consider like the cooldowns that you have. So the cooldowns. So like common cooldowns is like just shields in general, especially Reinhardt's, but all shields are pretty good cooldowns. And it's nade, because if they have trans, that's gonna make the trans even like better because it's gonna get more healing. So if they don't have the nade, then it's just a free grab. Well, not free entirely, but what are those? Let me think for that. I'll go back to this. I don't just want to do the hero selection. Lucio's amp could be considered one. So basically, the point of this is if you see you don't have a shield, or if you don't have an aid, or if you don't have amp or something like that, then they'll be liable to. And lamp is another big one. Lamp. If you don't have lamp, they're gonna try to grab you there. Other ones. I'm trying to think other like relevant ones. I guess personal projected are, but if you're playing Zarya, you're not gonna be able to like do anything about the grab anyway. So, yeah, and just I guess those are probably the biggest ones, but so basically just try to consider what cooldowns you have, and trying to think. So ults. So there's a lot of like what ults your team is using. There's a lot you can be able to do to infer whether or not they're gonna grab. One is they'll pretty much always ult if you Nano Blade. So like basically just if they're gonna, if your Genji is nano blading, just be on the lookout for E-Nano Grav. It's I guess like as Sigma that would probably be pretty hard to do, but like for like D.Va that'd be a lot more easy. If trans is more beat is wearing off. So trans slash B is my handwriting's so bad on the computer. So if either Transcendence or Beat is just like about to end, they'll be looking to grab. Trying to think. Other thing is positioning. So one, this is the one that like, I feel like this is the only readability most people know, but that's like if they play aggro. If aggro. But this is like walking past a Reinhardt shield aggro, that kind of thing. And that's very readable. Two is if high ground. So I feel like on the high ground, that's typically a pretty good sign they're gonna grab. And three is I don't have three here, but three is flanking. Like if they have grab and they're just like hard flanking, like doing just some like gigantic flank, they're gonna grab no matter what. Like that's like so like obvious. Like, but it's quite common to see like Zarya's like flanking, and they'll a lot of times be high ground. They'll flank to a high ground. They'll jump off a high ground. Another thing is jumping off of high ground. If jumping off high. Don't ask me why, but that's just that's another readable thing where like if they're jumping off the high ground, they're likely gonna grab. One of the things you can do to know whether or not they're even capable of grabbing is, I guess, do team checks, which is basically a lot of Zaryas won't grab if they can't get enough people in the grab. So if your like team is like always like 10 meters apart from each other or something like that, basically if nobody's standing still, you need to be aware of that because they're not going to grab like a single person. But yet again, that also kind of comes down to like profiling a little bit, where like profiling is really hard to do, but sometimes it's like important to do. I honestly think it's like really sleeper, but it's kind of the only way to not the only way, but it's a big way to like eat grabs. So like if you're basically, if you know the Zarya is like flanking a ton, then just profile the Zarya as a flanker Zarya, and this be looking for flanks and just be scouting where you to take like a guess where like where are the flanks in this spot, and then you need to be aware of those flanks, and you need to scout that, and then you can catch the Zarya off guard in that way. What did I just do? Okay. Another thing is just like I guess like profile them, like if they're willing to like solo grab somebody if they have like a really important ult, like if they know like trying to think of like an example of that. Like if Ana has like nano boost or something like that and they know that, or if like a Reinhardt has shatter and they just want to like solo grab them, you can profile them off of that. And I guess you could probably profile them off of like a lot of just these cooldowns, which cooldowns they like to do it off of, and a lot of that just comes back to like recalling previous team fights. And so I guess within knowing all of this that they're going to do it, it comes down to like 3 things on how to eat a grab, which is 1, tracking the ult, which I'll go over that anyway, but I feel like a lot of people know how to do it. Basically, you just have to like consider like how much damage have they been doing, like how like high energy are they, like did they like also on like fights where like if you win a fight, you get more ult charge than the enemy. So you have to consider like were they losing fights or winning fights, and that's going to change whether or not they're getting more ult charge. Another thing that sometimes affects it is if they're on fire, but that's not as reliable of a way to tell whether or not they got a lot. Basically, if you're playing like D.Va, a lot of times, if they farm you a ton and they get a ton of ult charge off of you, then they'll a lot of times like get a lot of grab, or you can pay attention to like, or they got a lot of grab off of the Reinhardt. Or another thing to pay attention for is if they were throwing right clicks in between team fights, because typically like each right click they throw, if they hit it, gets about 5% of their ult. But ultimately that just kind of comes down to like a lot of practice and just recalling what exactly has the Zarya done, and things like that. And then 2 is baiting. And so baiting basically, this can be done as like Sigma or D.Va, but like you generally, as D.Va, you want to like, you can either shift to like a high ground, or you can shift into like a Doomfist or something like that that's in your backline, or you can just shift like behind a wall or something like that. But basically shift and try to make the Zarya think that you're paying attention to something else, and then they'll grab you. And then since you were trying to get them to grab you in the first place, you would theoretically be able to eat it, but it's still quite difficult anyway. And then 3 is being close. And this is more of D.Va than Sigma, but basically you want to like use your shift ability as D.Va to get close to them, or as if you're like Sigma, you want to try to like get in their face and then eat their grab. Those are the main things on this stuff.